Hello there, and welcome to Echoes of the Imperium. I'm truly glad you've arrived. Maybe it's been a long day, or maybe you're the kind of soul who prefers to drift into sleep with thoughts of distant stars and ancient cosmic secrets instead of counting sheep. Either way, tonight's journey belongs to you. You don't need to do anything now, just rest. Let your mind grow quiet, your breath steady, and your body feel lighter, as if even the pull of gravity has begun to fade away.
The first thing I noticed was that the silence here felt artificial, like a universe trying very hard to pretend it did not fear me. I materialized in a flash of radiant gold and the shuddering roar of a collapsing dimensional corridor, the raw psychic backlash slamming into surrounding structures with the weight of a falling moon, pulverizing concrete, warping metal, and bending the fabric of space around my still-forming silhouette as if reality were trying to reject me like a body resisting a foreign organ. As my boots touched the cracked asphalt of a ruined boulevard, I sensed a strange absence. No warp, no demonic whispers, no screaming of lost souls carried on invisible tides, only a hollow, almost comedic emptiness, an untroubled quiet that unnerved me more than the shrieks of 10,000 tortured spirits ever had. The city around me lay in ruins, charred smoke rising from fallen skyscrapers, fragments of monster corpses strewn across the pavement, their flesh steaming and evaporating unnaturally fast as though the universe could not bear to let go linger in its streets. The breeze carried a faintly metallic tang, reminders of battle, but mingled with a bizarre lightness, as if the scent itself was diluted by the tone of this reality. And then I heard voices, panicked, breathless, disbelieving. A group of brightly clad warriors approached, though calling them warriors felt generous. They wore costumes that looked more like theatrical exaggerations than military attire, each adorned with symbols and colors so flamboyant they bordered on parody. A cyborg stepped forward first, internal combustion chambers whirring hot behind his plated chest, his metallic fingers twitching with restrained aggression. His name, I would later learn, was Genos. He demanded identification from me with rehearsed authority, but the terrified tremor in his voice betrayed a knowledge he did not comprehend, that something vastly beyond him had entered his world. Behind him, perched casually atop a half-collapsed rooftop, stood a bald man in a yellow jumpsuit and white cape, his gloved hands resting lazily at his sides, his expression not fearful nor awestruck but merely bored. That, above everything else, unsettled me. For while Genos radiated fear and the other heroes' minds buzzed with confusion, this man, Saitama, regarded my arrival with the emotional weight of someone observing a misplaced grocery item. Yet beneath his ordinary exterior, I sensed an anomaly, a singularity of raw, unfiltered, almost comically disproportionate power encased within a frame that should not logically contain it. My psychic senses, honed across millions of years, reached toward him instinctively and recoiled. Not in fear, in bewilderment. There was no warp resonance, no psychic field, no emotional signature. He was, in the purest sense, empty. Not hollow like a soulless automaton, not shielded like a pariah. Simply, beyond measurement. A being who existed outside the framework of cosmic logic. And while I stood there, processing this impossible presence, reality itself reacted to me like a fragile membrane stretched too thin. Faint golden cracks shimmered across the sky before sealing themselves, the universe stubbornly trying to maintain its simple facade. The heroes confronted me with questions. Who was I? Was I a monster? Was I responsible for the destruction? Their words bounced against the armor of my indifference, for my attention was focused on the deeper currents beneath this world's surface. I probed the air for psychic echoes, searching for the telltale turbulence of chaos, but instead found only the soft, absurd hum of a universe whose horrors were treated like inconvenient plot lines rather than existential threats. And yet, something stirred beneath that whimsical veneer. Something ancient. Something conceptually adjacent to the warp yet untainted by it. A force that responded to emotion, fear, obsession, manifesting in creatures these heroes called monsters, their origins dismissed as spontaneous quirks of nature or bizarre coincidences. But I saw them for what they truly were, physical manifestations of humanity's collective subconscious, birthed from suppressed anxieties. This world had no psychic infrastructure, and yet its collective fears somehow bled into reality. A miracle, a curse, an opportunity. The cyborg advanced again, heat vents glowing as he prepared an attack, but Saitama waved him back lazily, as though telling a puppy not to bark at a stranger. "Hey," the bald man said, as casually as one might greet a neighbor. "You lost or something?" His tone carried no hostility, no reverence, only an irritatingly genuine curiosity that clashed violently with the cosmic weight of my presence. For a moment, I considered speaking to them, explaining who I was, what had led to my displacement from the Imperium, how the fractures of the Great Rift had pulled my essence across the abyss of creation into this unfamiliar reality, but the truth would annihilate their minds. So I remained silent, my gaze sweeping across the horizon where distant sirens wailed and emergency evacuation drones circled nervously. I stretched my consciousness outward, probing deeper into the fabric of this world, and the more I searched, the more I realized the terrifying implication of my arrival. I was destabilizing the universe simply by existing. The air thickened with invisible pressure, electricity crackling around my armor. Civilians who had gathered at a distance clutched their heads, overwhelmed by migraines they could not understand. Machines flickered, lights dimmed, satellites short-circuited in orbit. My psychic presence, designed to guide and shield trillions of human minds, was flooding this world with more metaphysical weight than it had ever been built to withstand. I could no longer sense the Astronomicon. The warp was unreachable. I was alone in a universe not meant to house me. And then something shifted, subtle but unmistakable. One of the fallen monster corpses twitched. At first I thought it was a trick of the wind, but then the flesh began to bubble, swelling grotesquely as faint threads of golden energy seeped into its carcass, warping its cells as though my very aura had contaminated its genetic structure. The heroes gasped. Saitama raised an eyebrow. The mutated monster rose, its form elongating into a grotesque parody of life, its mouth stretching wide as it let out a distorted scream, half pain, half worship, directed at me. In that moment I understood the true danger. My presence would corrupt this world. Not through malice. Not through intention. Through inevitability. This universe had no defense against warp-adjacent contamination. No psychic antibodies to contain the conceptual infection I represented. Even without the warp itself, my essence was enough to twist living creatures into abominations. The mutated beast lunged at me, driven by instinctual compulsion. A flicker of golden thought later, it disintegrated into dust. Silence followed, an uneasy, trembling silence that spread across the heroes like frost. Saitama stared at the falling ash with mild disappointment. "Oh man," he muttered, "I was gonna punch that." For the first time in millennia, I felt the temptation to smile. But beneath that fleeting human impulse, dread coiled like a serpent. If even a dead monster could mutate from the residual imprint of my arrival, what would happen when I fully opened my psychic senses? What would happen if I unleashed even a fraction of my true power? What horrors would be born in a world whose laws were so malleable? And most importantly, what was Saitama? For he alone, in all this reality, remained unaffected, calm, unintimidated, unchanged, a fixed point in a universe that was rapidly destabilizing. He hopped down from the rooftop and approached me, his expression still maddeningly casual. "You look strong," he said. "Wanna fight?" The simplicity of the question cut through the tension like a blade. The surrounding heroes froze. Genos tensed. Machines hummed nervously. The ground beneath us crackled. And for the first time since entering this world, I looked Saitama directly in the eyes and felt, not fear, but recognition. Not of who he was, but of what he represented. A being unbound by causality, a paradox that should not exist, a man whose power eclipsed logic itself. I spoke at last, my voice resonating like a cathedral built of thunder. This universe trembles beneath forces it does not understand. You stand at its center. Why? Saitama blinked. Ha! And somewhere beneath the oceans, something ancient awakened in response to my question, as if the planet itself feared the truth that was surfacing. The air thickened. Space vibrated. Reality braced itself. And the age of cosmic absurdity ended with a whisper of grimdark inevitability. A universe that hides its terrors beneath comedy is the most dangerous kind, for its people never learn to fear the abyss until it is already staring back at them. Even as the dust settled from the mutated creature I had obliterated, I could feel the tectonic shift in this world, an invisible shudder rolling through oceans, mountains, and the collective consciousness of humanity, as though the planet itself had sensed something cosmically incompatible invading its carefully balanced absurdity. I walked through the broken city accompanied by the heroes who had gathered to investigate my arrival, their costumes bright, their personalities exaggerated, their presence almost laughably ill-equipped to confront the metaphysical weight I carried with each step. The Hero Association had dispatched drones that hovered anxiously above me, their digital eyes wide with false intelligence that struggled to categorize my existence. Every sensor reading contradicted the last. Massive power spikes followed by inexplicable null states, gravitational distortions where there should have been none, electromagnetic screams bleeding through their circuits like a machine crying out in terror. Gino stayed close, his mechanical servos humming loudly, his youthful determination masking the deeply ingrained fear that radiated from him like static. The man they called Saitama walked beside me, unbothered, scratching his cheek and inspecting the ruined storefronts as if this were merely a stroll through a mildly interesting neighborhood. The contrast between him and his world was immense. These people lived in fear of creatures born from whimsy, yet standing next to me was a man who embodied a type of power that defied cosmic taxonomy, limitless yet empty, profound yet mundane. His power was a contradiction woven into human shape, and contradictions such as him were things even the old ones of my universe could not create without consequence. As we moved, I extended my psychic senses with careful restraint, testing the ambient metaphysics of this dimension. What I found unsettled me deeply. There was no warp, no immaterium, no spiritual echo binding minds together. Instead, the emotions of this world manifested externally, literalized into monstrous entities shaped by sentiment rather than psychic energy. Fear became claws. Rage became fire. Obsession became mutation. It was not the psychic evolution of humanity I had nurtured for millennia. It was a crude, externalized parody, a world where metaphor leaked into biology without a spiritual medium to regulate it. And this crude system was breaking under the strain of my presence. Across the city, civilians collapsed into unconsciousness, overwhelmed by headaches and visions they couldn't comprehend. Visions of star gods, diamonds, and the endless war of my home reality. Screens flickered and displayed symbols from ancient terror, sigils from the Unification Wars, imperial aquilers, fragments of high Gothic that no machine should have generated. Monster cells in the laboratories of the Hero Association writhed under microscopes, mutating into golden-threaded abominations, clawing at their containment units as if the concept of my existence had rewritten the fundamental rules of their biology. Even now, I could sense 4 more such mutations occurring across the continent, each forming independently, drawn toward me like insects drawn to a flame. Saitama, of course, noticed none of this. Or rather, he noticed but did not assign meaning to it. "So," he said casually while kicking a loose pebble down the road, "you're strong, right? Stronger than that thing you vaporized." His tone was so obliviously relaxed it nearly bordered on psychotic. "Strength," I replied, "is a deceptive term in a universe such as yours." He blinked once. "Huh." I wondered whether this man's simplicity was a facade or a genuine feature of his being. A mind like his should not have been able to stand next to mine without fracturing into dust, yet Saitama remained whole, unaffected, untouched by every psychic wave I deliberately kept contained. If anything, my presence slid off him as though reality itself refused to let me influence him. I could not read him. I could not measure him. I could not even sense his true limits. He was an anomaly so profound it made the Chaos Gods seem predictable. The Hero Association's headquarters awaited us, an artificial tower rising from the city's heart like a technological monolith, bristling with antennas, scanners, and digital arrays designed to catalog and respond to monster threats. But as we approached, alarms blared within the complex. Dozens of machines sparked violently, monitors exploded, and technicians screamed as data streams became corrupted by impossible glyphs. The very moment my foot crossed their threshold, the building's power grid flickered, lights dimming to a low red haze that cast every corridor into a hellish glow. Even the walls felt strained, as if they recognized that something foreign to their universe had intruded into their domain. Executives and S-class heroes stared at me through reinforced glass with a mix of awe, fear, and existential dread. Expressions I had seen countless times from mortals who stood in the presence of something too vast to comprehend. A holographic map flickered to life before the council, its surface writhing with spatial distortions where none should have existed. "This anomaly appeared the moment you arrived," a trembling official explained, pointing toward a swirling rift beneath the ocean. The hologram displayed fractures of gold and violet light twisting together like strands of fate unraveling from their spool. "We've never seen anything like it. Our instruments say something massive is rising from the depths. Disaster level, unknown." My eyes narrowed. I felt it too, an ancient stirring from the abyss, a conceptual creature formed not from biology but from the sudden, catastrophic clash between my presence and the inherent absurdity of this universe's nature. Something like a proto-demon, but not from the warp. Something new. Something this world had never faced before. "It awakens because the world can no longer contain the contradiction I represent," I murmured. "The rupture is a symptom, not the cause." The room fell silent. Even the bravest heroes swallowed hard. Saitama, however, raised a hand like a student in school. So is it strong? I resisted the urge to sigh. It will be. Suddenly, the floor beneath us trembled as signal spiked. Satellite feed showed the sea boiling violently, whirlpools forming around a massive silhouette rising from the trench, its form shifting like liquid nightmare, its mass expanding faster than physical laws should have allowed. Its body flickered between shapes, unable to stabilize, as though reality itself struggled to decide what it was supposed to be. The phenomenon was almost warp-like, a creature shaped by conceptual imbalance, by the universe's attempt to reconcile my arrival. Its roar traveled through the water like the cry of a newborn god. Heroes panicked, shouting orders, preparing evacuations. Machines overloaded. Lights shattered. And in the midst of chaos, Saitama's only concern was, can I reach that place by bus? It became clear to me, then, that this world had been protected not by divine intervention, not by military might, but by an unconcerned man whose existence itself served as a stabilizing constant. Without him, this universe would have collapsed into existential horror long ago. My presence was accelerating that collapse. I turned toward the heroes. Your world stands at the edge of transformation, I said, my voice echoing with the quiet authority of ages. Prepare yourselves, not for battle, but for revelation. And as the ocean creature's psychic scream rippled across the globe, causing monsters inland to mutate and humans to shudder in fear, the universe trembled again. Not from the beast's awakening, but from the inevitable confrontation between myself, the emperor of mankind, and the being who embodied contradiction, Saitama. Whether he realized it or not, our paths were converging toward a collision the universe could not contain. And in that collision, only one truth would remain. Some threats announce themselves with roars, others are born in silence, in the deep places where universes hide the truths they do not want their inhabitants to see. The creature rising from the ocean trench continued to expand, its form twisting like a cosmic fetus struggling to define itself in a world not meant to host such entities, each moment reshaping its anatomy as the conceptual pollution caused by my arrival destabilized its identity. Entire coastlines shook as tidal waves erupted outward. The ocean itself recoiled from the thing's presence, parting around its body as if water refused to accept it as a part of existence. The Hero Association scrambled, sending out S-class reinforcements to intercept it, but their bravado faltered when satellite images magnified the monstrosity's true nature, a constantly shifting mass of bone-like structures, tendrils of molten gold, and eyes that formed and dissolved like hallucinations. The ambient psychic shockwave that emanated from it washed over humanity like a cold wind carrying the scent of old nightmares, compelling millions to shudder with visions they could not explain. War, fire, broken worlds, diamonds with impossible names. I recognized the pattern immediately, though it was not warp-based. It was this universe's clumsy imitation of demonic manifestation, a creature attempting to mimic a form that had no foundation here. It had awakened because of the contradiction I represented. The Emperor of Mankind, a being sculpted by humanity's desperate evolution in a universe built on cosmic horror, had intruded into a world accustomed to treating horror as spectacle. Reality could not reconcile the clash. It created something to mediate the imbalance, a monster born from conceptual tension, a bridge between grimdark truth and comedic absurdity. It was not inherently evil, merely necessary. But necessity births calamity. Genos rushed ahead to engage the entity, propelled by boosters roaring like miniature suns, his metal limbs glowing red as he unleashed torrents of plasma against the creature's outer shell. The blasts hit with the force of orbital bombardment, but the creature simply reabsorbed the damage, its unstable form adapting instantly, growing armored segments where it had been hurt, developing countermutations to repel further attacks. Shocked but determined, Genos pushed harder, firing concentrated heat beams that split the air like lines of molten glass. His attacks evaporated chunks of the creature's flesh, but the missing pieces grew back immediately, bigger, stronger, more grotesque, as if his assault only fed its evolution. The young cyborg screamed in frustration, a sound tinged with the fear of inadequacy. I sensed his internal emotional turbulence, loyalty, rage, devotion to Saitama, and a deep, festering inferiority complex that had defined his entire existence. In any other universe, such emotions might have manifested psychically. Here, they simply fueled the monster indirectly, its existence tied to emotional resonance in ways these people did not understand. Meanwhile, Saitama watched from a ship deck the Association had hastily commandeered, ignoring the chaos around him as he held a convenience store bag filled with discounted snacks. He squinted at the distant creature as though examining a mildly confusing insect. "Kinda big," he remarked. "Hope it's not a hassle." His nonchalance bordered on the absurd, but I realized it was precisely that absurdity which kept the universe stable. His very presence denied cosmic escalation. He was a fixed point of defiance, a singularity of simplicity in a world drifting toward complexity. And the more the world bent toward grimdark reality in response to my existence, the more violently its metaphysical essence clashed with Saitama's. Two contradictions orbiting the same truth. I hovered above the ocean, golden wings of psychic energy unfurling behind me as I extended my aura cautiously. Even a restrained projection of my power turned the sky dark, clouds coiling like serpents to avoid my light while lightning cracked in spirals that obeyed no natural pattern. The ocean stilled beneath me, the tides bending in reverence or fear. My presence caused the creature to convulse, its body warping violently as though trying to adjust to the pressure of my existence. Entire sections of its mass exploded outward into clouds of shimmering dust that reformed instantly, blending into its grotesque silhouette. The creature sensed me. It knew I was its progenitor in concept, if not in biology. It screamed, not in challenge but in raw existential panic, a sound like 10,000 distorted echoes layered into one. I reached into its mind, not to dominate but to comprehend, and immediately recoiled at the chaotic tangle inside. This was not a mind born through evolution. It was a mind assembled by accident, like shards of multiple souls fused together into a malformed consciousness. It was aware. It was terrified. It wanted meaning, identity, definition, something to anchor its unstable existence. And because I was the most conceptually dominant force it sensed, it clung to me. It reached out not to destroy but to merge, to anchor itself through my essence, like a dying star trying to stabilize by devouring a sun. This could not be allowed. If it merged, the consequences would ripple across dimensions. S-class heroes reached the shoreline, blasting the creature with their weapons and abilities. Tatsumaki hurled entire freighter ships at it using psychic power that would have impressed even Alpha-plus psychers of my universe. Her abilities bent the sky itself. For a brief moment, she resembled the witches of the Scholastica Psychana. But unlike them, she did not wield warp energy. Her telekinesis was raw, internalized force without metaphysical cost. That difference made her more dangerous than she realized. Her attack slammed into the creature, slicing through its unstable mass, but every blow she landed destabilized it further, accelerating its mutation. Superalloy Darkshine leapt into the fray, his muscles shimmering like polished obsidian as he delivered blows that shattered mountain-sized chunks of the monster's body. But the creature adapted again, forming armor with densities that rivaled ceramite and then surpassing ceramite, becoming something akin to a crude imitation of Necron hyperalloy, though far less stable. Each hero who joined the battle only worsened the imbalance. Emotional resonance, narrative tension, conceptual escalation. This universe was not built to contain grimdark warfare. Here, every action amplified absurdity, and absurdity amplified transformation. The creature's power grew exponentially. Its roar triggered shockwaves that split the ocean, exposing the seabed as trenches cracked open like wounds in the earth. Wind surged, bending skyscrapers miles inland. The sea turned black as its tendrils leached minerals, swallowing entire sections of the ocean floor to reinforce its structure. I sensed that even the planet's core trembled under its influence. Humanity's fear spiked again. Fear of extinction, fear of helplessness, fear of the unknown, and the creature's form stabilized suddenly, as though the collective terror granted it coherence. Its body unfurled into a towering humanoid shape, a massive being of bone-white armor streaked with gold fissures, multiple eyes glaring with a hunger not for destruction, but for identity. For purpose. It extended an arm toward me, dripping with liquid concepts. "Father," it gurgled, its voice a broken symphony of mismatched tones. Heroes froze in confusion. The world fell silent. Saitama slurped from a juice box. I felt a flicker of something unexpected. Pity. This creature was not my child, but it believed itself to be one, a warped reflection formed from conceptual bleed. "You seek stability," I said softly, my voice carrying across wind and waves. "But you are born of contradiction. You cannot anchor yourself in me." Its form trembled, cracks split across its chest, glowing like molten fissures. Its scream was pained, mourning. It lunged toward me with a desperate, almost human need. The heroes panicked. Tatsumaki prepared to crush it with her full power. Genos prepared to detonate himself again. But then Saitama stepped forward, cape fluttering lazily. "All right," he sighed. "Guess it's my turn." In that moment, the universe itself seemed to hold its breath. The absurd collided with the grimdark. The unstoppable met the immovable. And I felt a disturbance, not in spacecraft, not in psychic resonance, but in the underlying structure of probability. A man who should not exist was about to fight a creature that should never have been born, in a universe that was beginning to crack under the weight of contradiction. And somewhere in the cracks, something else was watching. Something old. Something patient. The night the Emperor descended into Zed City to confront the Harbinger was the night I finally understood why entire civilizations once trembled at the mere rumor of his march, for the streets, normally alive with neon light, chatter, and distant sirens, had fallen silent in a way that felt unnatural even for a world used to catastrophe, as though the city itself had ceased breathing the moment his armored boots touched its cracked pavement, each step echoing like the tolling of a cosmic funeral. Bell, and even the ever-present wind seemed to recoil from him. I followed several paces behind, heart hammering, every sense trembling beneath the psychic pressure radiating from his form, because the Emperor did not merely walk, he imposed himself on the world, warping the boundaries of space with a presence that demanded obedience from atoms, shadows, and memory alike. And as I trailed him through the ghostly ruins, I realized how grotesquely inadequate the hero association's language was. God-level threat meant nothing compared to the storm of myth walking ahead of me, a being whose rage had once scorched star systems and whose mercy had rewritten the species of mankind. Now, he was hunting something that should not exist in any universe, something born of evolution and madness, a creature whose distorted silhouette flickered at the edge of every alley like a hallucination trying to become real. The Harbinger's voice slithered across the ruins before we ever saw him, vibrating through broken windows, trembling in shattered asphalt, whispering through every rusted pipe like 1,000 throats speaking in practiced harmony. "You do not belong, Golden One. You are an aberration, an intruder, a god without a biosphere." The Emperor paused, and for a heartbeat the universe seemed to brace itself. I could not see his expression beneath the war mask, yet I felt the shift in him, the subtle tension that meant he was already analyzing the creature's psychic frequency, dissecting every syllable as though prying open its genome. "I am the Emperor of mankind," he answered quietly, but his voice rolled through the ruins like divine artillery, "and I have purged horrors beyond the reach of your imagination. Step forward." The Harbinger obeyed, not from respect, but from a twisted sense of theater, and he emerged from the shadows like a biological experiment struggling to remember its original template. His form rearranged itself every second, bones clicking into new configurations with wet, nauseating snaps, eyes blooming and dissolving across his flesh like malignant flowers, and the smell of him, raw protein and accelerating entropy, hit me so hard I nearly gagged. "This world is weak," the Harbinger hissed, limbs stretching into spears before reforming into tendrils dripping with acidic slime. "These heroes are weak. Even the bald one is weak. He fights without hunger, without purpose, without evolution. I will improve them all. Convert them. Repurpose them." At the mention of Saitama, the Emperor turned slightly, and though he said nothing, I sensed a tension, an interest, that bordered on imperial calculation. He had watched Saitama fight earlier that day, watched his effortless lethality, watched how the man killed boredom more than monsters. The Emperor understood power, but he also understood the tragedy of power without direction, and I wondered, horrified, if he saw Saitama not as an ally but as a potential weapon to be reforged in his image. Yet the Harbinger wanted none of that complexity. He lunged forward with a screech that shook streetlights from their poles, tendrils carving craters into the concrete, forming biomatter cannons along his arms, firing viscous plasma that sizzled. The Emperor raised one hand, and for a moment I thought he would unleash the psychic wrath that had once annihilated demonic hosts across entire worlds. But he didn't. Instead, he observed, studied, measured the thing before him with the cold fascination of a war sage examining a new plague. "You are not evolution," he said, voice flattening. "You are a disease wearing evolution skin." The Harbinger shrieked, the air shimmering with sonic distortion, and suddenly he grew, expanded, unfurling wings of cartilage and teeth, dozens of legs rooted into the street like organic siege supports, his entire body mutating into a biomechanical cathedral of screaming biomass. "I am Ascension," it roared, and the force of the cry blasted debris outward, slamming me against a collapsed wall. For a moment darkness swallowed my vision, but through the ringing in my ears I heard the Emperor's slow steps as he advanced on the creature, unshaken by its size, its madness, its impossible anatomy. Then I witnessed something that froze the blood in my veins. The Emperor did not strike the Harbinger. He simply placed his palm against the creature's shifting hide, and the entire abomination convulsed as if touched by absolute truth. Golden light seeped into its flesh, illuminating its organs, its tendons, its wretched heart, and I felt the psychic shockwave slam into my skull as the Emperor forced himself into the creature's mind, peeling apart its consciousness like a corrupted archive. I saw flashes, horrible flashes, inside the Harbinger's mind. The monster cells, yes, but more than that, a deeper hunger embedded in them, a fragment of something that wanted purpose, wanted ascension, wanted to eradicate stagnation at any cost. The Harbinger was merely a symptom, not a cause, and the Emperor saw that too. "You are not the architect of your madness," he whispered, golden light burning brighter. "You are merely its messenger." The Harbinger screamed as its own thoughts collapsed inward, its identity unraveling under the Emperor's psychic autopsy. Limbs evaporated into mist, eyes imploded, bones liquefied, and within seconds the monstrosity crumbled into a heap of steaming genetic sludge. But as the last of its biomass dissolved, a symbol emerged in the residue, a spiraling fractal of cell structures arranged in perfect symmetry, a geometric pattern so complex it felt like a visual paradox, and the Emperor stiffened as he recognized something in the impossible design. "This world," he murmured, golden aura dimming with a rare shade of concern, "has been tampered with." The wind howled low between ruined buildings, and I felt ice settle in my stomach. If something existed in this universe capable of alarming the Emperor, then whatever was coming next made the Harbinger look like an opening act. The Emperor rose, his cloak shuddering behind him like the wing of a celestial predator, and he spoke, not to me, not to himself, but to the unseen architect whose influence had rewritten the biology of Earth. "Show yourself." The night answered with silence. The city watched with breath held. And somewhere across the continent, as if awakening from a long sleep, something old and impossible stirred. In the hours that followed the Harbinger's annihilation, the world did not return to normal. Rather, it fell into a breathless waiting, an anxious stillness like the hush before a planetary eclipse. For while the Emperor strode silently back toward the Hero Association headquarters, his expression unreadable behind that unchanging war mask, every psychic sensor across the continent began to scream with unfamiliar distortions, waves of biological data moving like ripples through the ground itself. As if the earth beneath our feet had become a vast organism responding to some hidden command, I walked beside him, though walked is too graceful a word for the half-stumbling, half-dazed motion of a human struggling to survive the gravity of his presence, trying to comprehend the fractal symbol left behind by the Harbinger. Its spiraling geometry still burned into my mind like an afterimage of a dying star, and the Emperor's silence only deepened my dread, because when he chooses not to speak, it means his thoughts are burrowing through possibilities too grave to share. By the time we reached the Association's war room, alarms were blaring across multiple city sectors, screens flashing with pulsating red glyphs that looked disturbingly similar to the cryptic biological pattern etched into the Harbinger's remains. Dozens of analysts scrambled to decode the signals but failed, their fingers shaking as they typed, their eyes twitching from the psychic feedback that now hummed faintly behind the walls like a distant engine warming to life. S-class heroes gathered in clusters, Geno scanning holographic maps with frantic precision, Atomic Samurai gripping the hilt of his blade a little tighter than usual, Tatsumaki's aura crackling with distrust as she hovered eye level with the Emperor like a storm cloud daring the sun to burn through it, and King. Well, King stood rigid, trembling, sweating, but attempting heroically to maintain his reputation as humanity's terrifying secret AC.